Hello and welcome to Day in Woburn. I'm your host, Samantha Stone. I am looking forward to a very busy week this week. And of course, we reflect back on a busy weekend of activities across the city. Welcome first up, Mayor Mike Concanon. Welcome, Mike.
Hi, Samantha. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I know there's a lot happening. We're going to talk about a couple things in particular, but before we jump into this week, I wanted to just reflect back a little bit on last week. I know some of the students from the high school came out and spent some time in front of City Hall and maybe another place or two in the downtown area, sharing some feedback about some staffing decisions and things. And I know you had a chance to chat with them, so I just wanted to give you a chance to share your impressions.
Yeah, I did. This was on Friday morning. There was a group of students who were holding some signs and uh, sending out messages to those traveling by. I saw them downtown at a couple of locations. Wasn't exactly sure what the messaging was. Uh, then I noticed that they paused in front of City Hall for a while. So I started to pick up on some of the messaging, and I figured I should get down and chat with them a little bit. So I did. Spent a few minutes with them to understand what the issue was, and had a nice conversation with them. In essence, they were concerned about some decisions that were made at in the public schools in terms of staffing. Come to find out, the story behind the story is that, as happens quite frequently, there were some decisions made at the end of a school year regarding the non-renewal of some of the newer employees, and decisions are made for a variety of reasons. And we were able to have a nice conversation with the students and explain that these are school department matters, school committee and school superintendent matters. Explained a little bit about how the budget works, and clarified a bit of a misconception that there was some cuts. These were staffing decisions that happen each year, not cuts in any sense. Explained to them that the school department budget for fiscal year 26 had in fact gone up $5.6 million. So we weren't cutting any positions. We weren't laying anybody off. The school department had made decisions on the appropriate people for certain positions going forward. And we had a cordial discussion, was able to have that explanation. And the kids were great. They were respectful. We had a little bit of a back and forth dialogue, and then they moved on. I do expect that, based on what they told me, that they'll be coming before the school committee this week to voice those concerns again. And again, I expect they'll be as respectful there as they were here. And it's always nice to see younger folks getting involved and voicing their opinions. So it was a nice encounter.
Good. Thank you for sharing that update. I agree. I think it's great to have people who are engaged and want to share their thoughts and ideas. So I'm sure they were glad that you were able to come out and chat with them for a few minutes.
Yeah. Yep.
We're talking about budgets. So let's just talk a little bit about the operating budget and the pay-as-you-go capital budget were approved by City Council in the last City Council meeting. In the discussions and budget hearings and things that happened, there were a lot of talk about longer term, bigger things around capitals, specifically a lot of discussion around school infrastructure. And we talked in that time that that's not part of the pay-as-you-go capital budget, that would be handled separately. I thought now that we know where we stand in terms of the primary operating and capital budgets, what will happen next? What are the next steps? And do we anticipate that happening right now or in the fall or later in the year?
Yeah. So I won't rehash everything we talked about before, but to your point, there's the operating budget, which was passed. And then there's the pay-as-you-go portion of the capital budget, which are the annual capital expenditures that the city council weighs in on, and each of the departments present their ideas and their needs. That was approved. We appreciate that. And we referred to that as bucket one of the capital discussion. There's essentially three buckets. The third bucket is the one that people are most familiar with, and that's when we go and build a new school. So those discussions in bucket three, as you know, continue. The school committee is still working on what they would like to recommend to the city council and to my office. That's the bucket three discussion. And the one you're referring to we've called it bucket two, somewhere between, buying a copy machine for the year and building a school is when you're putting a new roof on a school, or you're uh, spending somewhere between $1 and $5 million on a big ticket item. It doesn't fall neatly into bucket one or bucket three. There isn't as scripted a process for those discussions. They kind of come up as the needs arise. A couple of needs that we've been kicking around as of late and came up during the budget discussion. One was the roof at the Shamrock School, and similarly the roof at the Linscott School. And then the other piece of uh, the pie that was discussed is the school safety and security needs. Again, its own individual discussion. So we are advancing both of those ideas. And I guess when something falls in bucket two, it's driven by needs, obviously priorities, and because there isn't a set schedule of when those discussions should happen, we kind of just tackle them as they come. I did want the folks to be aware that we're attempting to tackle those two items I referenced, the school roofs and the safety and security items. We actually have grants pending in each of those categories that may help us considerably in solving those problems. So we're letting those pieces of the puzzle play out a little bit. At the same time, we've talked with the school department and other city departments about creating a task force of sorts that would help us navigate through the school safety and security needs, having people who know the city well, know the school buildings well, taking recommendations and ideas from a consultant and making them action items. So it's my expectation that we'll have some answers soon on whether we get these grants, both the roofs and the safety and security issues, and then we'll proceed after that. Assuming the worst case scenario, we don't get either of these grants, we will move towards coming up with a plan to make a request to the city council, to, whether it's stabilization funds or free cash, depending on the time of year, how we take steps to implement those bucket two needs. And there's other items that fall in bucket two, and each department has the opportunity to bring them forward. And again, as we always do, we prioritize and go to the city council with a request that we think is reasonable, and try to take bites out of those big elephants as best we can.
Excellent. Thank you for that update. I know we've had a lot of people asking about what's next, and so that sounds clear. Appreciate that very much. The other thing that we have going on right now that's big opportunity and a good opportunity for us as a city is we're beginning the rollout of the community electricity program. This is something we've talked about in the past. We've had some community meetings. Many people received a mailer if they have Eversource Basic. Some people might not have opened it and read it. There's definitely been some folks who might have not recognized what it was. And we have a meeting on Wednesday here at City Hall and available on broadcast for people to ask additional questions. However, I thought it would be useful now that maybe it's more aware and people are paying a little bit more attention now that those mailers have gone out, to talk a little bit about why we have engaged in the Woburn Community Electricity Program as a city.
Yeah, so some years ago, the state passed a law that allowed cities and towns to decide if they wanted to move forward with this idea of community aggregation purchasing of electricity, where the idea would be that buying it in bulk, the more people in the group, the cheaper the price might be and the better the deal might be. So the state passed a law that allowed cities and towns to take advantage of that if they wanted to. And over the years, the city council has looked at that idea a couple of times and thought it would be a good idea to adopt the law and then follow the process. And the process would be work with a third party, check the market periodically to see whether it was a good time to take advantage. So in the last year or so, after getting the city council's blessing, we've been working with a third party. We've been watching the market closely. We've been examining and exploring all the options available to the city. And in the last month or so, we gave the green light to go out to bid. And the results that came back were positive. I'll say that the motivation from the beginning of all of this was two things: to try to get a better deal for the residents, where maybe they can save a little bit of money. And number two, probably 1A actually, is seeking some stability so we can try to manage the volatility in the electricity market so people aren't faced with highs and lows and unpredictability in their electric bills. So, having gone out to bid, we're pretty pleased with the results. What we received back was the ability to lock in for 4 years plus a stable rate that's lower than the current Eversource rate that most people are paying. The other piece of this that matters is that when the law was passed, they determined that the best way to make this work and get the biggest bang for the buck was to create it as an opt-out scenario rather than opt-in. So when the city of Woburn adopted this law, it came with it the opt-out provision. So if someone does nothing, they will be put into this program, and the good news is they'll automatically save a little bit of money, and they'll get stability for the next 4 years. Now, I know in these times of uncertainty, that stability means a lot. But I also know that a lot of people are trying with every monthly bill cycle to squeeze as much as they can. And those who are really on top of things can compare the rates we got with their rate. I think they'll find it's a good deal, and they can do nothing and partake. 2 months from now, if the market changes and they can get a better deal somewhere else, they can leave our program. No penalty, no harm, no foul, and they can jump in and jump out as frequently as they'll like, which is one of the main benefits of this program. Even though the city can lock in a stable rate for 4+ years, the people are not locked in. They can leave, come and go as they like, which we thought was one of the major selling points. So the thought behind all of this is it's voluntary. You're going to save some money, and you're going to have stability in your monthly bills. So to me, those are some really significant pluses to the city doing this. Again, if there are people out there who are watching these rates every single week, every single month, and they can find a better deal somewhere, they are perfectly able to do that. So I think that's a good thing. I know we're rolling it out now, and there's always a lot of questions when something new comes up. We're available to answer any of those questions. As you said, we're having another meeting Wednesday night.
Yep.
And we'll be available to answer any more particular questions. And I know that later on there's a opportunity to go through your electric bill with some representatives who can walk you through what can be sometimes a complicated piece of paper when you look at your bill. Not everything is readily apparent what it means.
Yep.
So there'll be a chance for people to walk through and better understand their bill and see what the line items mean. And that will allow them, as we go forward, to keep a better tab on their bill. And as I said, jump in and jump out, whatever works best for them.
Excellent. And I know that there are another question people have is there's 3 versions of product that you can opt into for the Woburn Community Election. There's a basic, a standard, and then I'm sorry, I should have the third name in front of me, but I don't. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
I thought just to give you comment on those 3 pieces and why we've included 3 options.
Yeah. So the basic is what it sounds like. It's the lowest priced standard typical, I shouldn't say standard, typical type of electric source that you're used to, fossil fuels, coal, that the typical energy source that we've been using for years. The plus is primarily renewable energy for those who value that approach and would prefer that their energy come from a renewable source. And then the middle one, which is actually called the standard, has a small component of renewables, but it's primarily the typical type of source we're all used to. The default is what's called standard. It's that middle one. But if people would prefer to be all in on the renewables and that matters most to them, then they can check that box. And if they'd prefer to simply go for the straight savings and go for the basic, they can check that box. We felt it was important to give people options based on their own individual priorities and what matters most to them. And we tried to make it as easy as possible. Again, as I said in the beginning, if you do nothing, you'll be put into the middle box. You'll save. We already know what Eversource's rate is going to be as of August. You'll save money right out of the gate, and you'll lock in, if you want, 4 years of stable rates. As I said, if you find a better deal next week, you can jump to that. No hard feelings at all. So by giving people the 3 opportunities, we figured that should meet most of the needs of the community.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I think that's a good reminder for folks. I do want to remind people, another question people have asked a lot is, um, this program is around electric supply. What happens to delivery? Eversource will continue to be your delivery provider. That means if your power goes out, they fix it. That means if there's you're building something new and you need a new line, that's going to, come from Eversource. You have a question about your electricity, you still call Eversource. That does not change, and they will continue to do the good and important work that they do there. We also know that the cost of delivery is a high portion of the bill and is not included in the aggregate program. So we've teamed up with Eversource to do a bill review because they have some of their own programs that some people in our community might, qualify for. And so that bill review will be directly with Eversource on July 8th. And we encourage people to take advantage of that as well.
Yeah, and as you said, Eversource owns the infrastructure. They'll be responsible for that. We do not expect any glitches at all. This has happened in many communities with no problem at all. Eversource is very familiar with how this works. So we don't expect any problems when this rolls out. Again, it's all about education and understanding your options. And we encourage people to ask questions. They can come to the community meeting. They can send us emails. They can ask us questions, and we'll get them the information they need to make the decision that's best for them. Again, we've got options. And at the end of all this, remember, this is all voluntary. And we think it's a good thing. But if you don't agree, you don't have to do it. And I really don't think there's a downside to having this opportunity.
Thank you. So we will be also another last little thing, and then we'll move on to other things. But thank you for the depth of conversation today. We have a lot going on in the city. We have a new parklet, and we've got an event on Thursday at 1 o'clock. We'll have some popsicles to kind of celebrate it and just have some fun on this hot heat wave week.
Yeah.
But I thought it'd be helpful for people who've never seen a parklet and who haven't had a chance to drive by it. It's, sort of on the corner of Church Ave in Maine, across from Peppercorn, for you to share a little bit about what a parklet is.
Yeah, I really didn't know what a parklet was either until it was brought to my attention. And we got some funding from the state for some downtown enhancements. And we've done a lot of little things to try to make it a little more enjoyable and attractive and more welcoming downtown. And one of the ideas was this parklet, which is basically a raised platform of outside seating. It's owned by the city and run by the city, but it's available to anyone downtown to use. The idea is if you happen to buy a sandwich in one of the restaurants downtown, you felt like eating your lunch outside, you could go and sit in the parklet. It's got some tables and chairs and umbrellas. There's a nice breeze out there, and you can just enjoy your lunch, outdoors. My wife and I checked it out the other night. It was a beautiful night on Thursday, and it was kind of cool. Um, wasn't a big crowd yet because it's new. I think a lot of people are wondering what is it, but it's our hope that people will like the idea. We're testing out this particular location. Uh, so far, so good, but we are interested in feedback. If people think there's a better spot for it, or there's an issue with where it is, we're all ears. And if we need to find another spot, we can do that. But so far, I think it's been well received. I've seen some people out there. And again, it's an idea to try out, and we hope that people take to it, and we'll see how it goes.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Samantha.
Thank you. Next up, we're going to have Robin Brenner from the library. And just a reminder, one other little city logistics, you should start to see green waste management carts all across the city this week. I know some people have already received theirs today. That is part of our trash automation. We've talked about that before, so we won't talk about it again today. But if anybody needs information and needs access to the FAQ, we can certainly get that to you. And it's also on the website as well. In the meantime, let's jump into fun library stuff. Welcome, Robin.
Hi, I'm glad to be here.
Excellent. We're glad to have you. You've now been with the library for a little while now. Tell us a little bit about what it's like in our beautiful library that we all love so much.
It's been really wonderful. I think the thing I've really been impressed by is how much the community comes out and is certainly supportive of the library, but also are just willing to volunteer. We've had a lot of really wonderful new community leaders for programs and events. And we've had a lot of feedback that's really helped me get a handle on what we should be doing and what people are looking for. But it's undeniably a beautiful building, which is lovely. But it's the community that to me that's really shining through at this point. Everyone here, of course, all my colleagues and everyone in the library does a wonderful job, but it's been really great to see over the months and get used to kind of the rhythm of everything, but I've been really delighted.
Excellent. Well, we are really enjoying you being with us and some of the programs and things that you spearheaded. One of the exciting things that happening is summer reading is kicking off. And I remember my children are now grown, but when they were little, we used to go to the little dungeon children's room and before we
Hmm.
built the beautiful addition. And even then, they still loved summer reading and all the fun incentives and things that they had to enjoy books. Tell us a little bit about the program for kids this year.
Sure. So we have, in some ways, two separate programs for children and then teens as well. But the children's program will be familiar to people, I think, from previous years. But we have the Rubber Ducky Club for ages 0 to 4, and that's if you read to your child at least 4 days a week, then you get a rubber ducky to take home. And if you read 40 days, then you get a chance to win tickets, for example, to Canopy Lake, Dave and Buster's, or to a trampoline park. And then yeah, those are going to be very fun. For ages a little bit older, so 5 to 11, there's the Read and Bead program. So every day that you read, then you get a bead for a summer reading necklace that you wear. Well, you don't have to, but you can. And then there's the same sort of thing. If you get 40 days of reading, then you also get a ticket, could win a ticket to the Topsfield Fair, which is very exciting. It also includes a free hot dog, free drink, and a free ride, which is particularly exciting.
Nice.
And then the same prizes as before, also those options for prizes. And then we always do Tanner's Travels around to different locations around the city. So that's 0 to 11. Everyone can participate, but local shops and businesses will have a secret word that they display in their place of business. And is the once you find out what the word is, you can show a librarian in the children's room and you get an extra bead or you get an extra ticket. So that's really fun, I think, especially for the little kids. And then for teen, they are also doing similar to what we did last year. They did a bingo board. So that's grades 6 to 12. So going into those grades, just to be clear, it's around ages 11 to 18. But it's similar to a bingo that you might know from ever playing bingo. But you can do different library activities, and every time you get a box completed, you get a raffle ticket. They have that's for weekly prizes, so that includes gift cards to places like Dunkin's and Studio Cafe and Newbury Comics. And then when you get five in a row on the bingo card, then you can get a ticket for the grand prizes. And those this year include a giant squishmallow, which is like as big as a person. Uh, and Mario Brothers Piranha Plant Lego set, which are always fun, and a color changing 20-sided dice lamp. The theme for this year for summer reading is level up at your library. So there's a lot of gaming related themes and gaming related sort of programs that are coming up. And then anytime you attend a program or you write a book review, you can get an extra raffle ticket. So that's just a whole slew of stuff for the teens.
That sounds
And then,
fabulous. I know that
yeah,
20-sided dice lamp would be very popular in my house. That's fantastic. But I know we don't leave adults out completely. There's some programs for them
nope.
to enjoy as well.
Sure. So this year for adults, we kind of leaned into the gaming theme. So instead of a bingo card, we're going to have a game board path that you have to follow and complete all the squares on the game board. There's two of them. There's we're calling an adventurer's quest, so it's more activity based, and then there's reader's delight, which is more centered on reading. You can do both. You can do either, and it's similar to the bingo card. Is every time you complete five little like squares in a row. You get five raffle tickets. When you get the whole board done, you get 10 more. So that's 40 raffle tickets for every sheet that you complete. And you can go in order. We encourage you to go in order, but it's okay to check them off kind of out of order if that's how you manage to complete them. And then you can complete as many of those game boards as you can during the 7 weeks of summer reading. And you can also, similar to the teens, you can collect a raffle ticket at any program you attend between June 30th and August 15th, which is this kind of window that we're doing all of these things. And also, if you want to write book reviews, that also gets you another raffle ticket. So there's lots of ways. And our raffle baskets this year, there's a whole array. We've honestly been really delighted by how many different kinds of options we have for our raffle baskets. I will say the weekly raffle, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but we've been promoting them on social media, but these are some slate coasters that we've made. So
Fun.
you can win a package of four, and they're different gaming designs, and they have the library logo on the back. So those are going to be really nice as just a weekly prize, but there's all sorts of things. There's games, there's cookbooks, there's gift cards, there's so many wonderful sponsors too have come through for us in terms of providing really great things. So if you come by this weekend, which we'll talk about, you'll be able to see a lot of the
Yeah.
baskets already out and see what we've got for you.
I love that. Thank you for catching us up. And to kick all of this off, there's always a fun summer reading event to get us all in the spirit. Tell us a little bit about what will be happening this year.
Yeah, so this it's going to be this Saturday on June 28th, and we have things going on really all day. You'll be able to register all day, so you can go to any of the desks, the children's room, the teen room, or the circulation or the reference desk. Any of us can register and sign you up. You can also register online. There'll be a very obvious button on those pages that will pop up that day. If you do look at our summer reading pages right now, you won't be able to register yet, but you will once we start. And then for the children's room, they're going to have a scavenger hunt and friendship bracelet making, which is always lovely. And then during the afternoon is when the bulk of the special events will be happening. So from 1 to 3 is the basic window. And then we have in the program room, there'll be lawn games and big Legos or mega Legos even. And then on the ground floor, the Friends of the Library will be there to offer everyone some tasty treats and also to show you the book sale and some new offerings we might have there. In the maker space, which is on the first floor, we will have airbrush tattoos, all sorts of different fun ones you can get. And then the big thing for adults is the local author book fair happens in the gallery. So we're going to do that in the historic part of the building. And there'll be over 24 different authors that you can come and meet. But as part of it this year, because of the gaming thing, we're also doing an adult scavenger hunt that will get you even more tickets that will involve solving a word clue. And once you return that, then you'll get another ticket. The other fun thing we have is one of our community volunteers that I mentioned earlier will be running a game that's a historical reenactment in miniature that is a sea battle from the Napoleonic Wars, the Mauritius campaign. If any of you are Patrick O'Brien fans, you'll know those battles. But that's going to be in the historical artifacts room, and you'll be able to go and see how that works and maybe participate.
I love it, Robin. Thank you so much to you and the whole team. I know there's an incredible amount of work that goes into making this a fun and learning opportunity for a whole community, and we're grateful for that.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we're going to turn to a different library lover, although we won't be talking too much about the library. Welcome, Colleen.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So Colleen is friends of the Woburn Library, but today we're going to talk about something else. But before we jump into the school committee stuff, is there anything on the summer reading that you wanted to comment on or anything?
No, I appreciate Robin shouting out the friends. I will be there, handing out tasty treats, as she said. We've got our book sale coming up. It's always the third weekend in September. And the week leading up to it, you can drop off any donations, and we will also have volunteers sorting those. You can get yes hours if you're a student. And there's another special summer reading related event coming up that I don't want to talk too much about yet, but we have been asked as the friends to sponsor that, and it's going to be incredible and amazing. And so keep your ears peeled for that.
Yes, there's your teaser. I love that. I'm looking forward to it. So I want to talk a little, we're going to switch gears, talk about your role on the school committee, but specifically as the policy chair. I think not most, many people attend a school committee meeting here and there, or many of them, or watch them, and they've been tuned into things like redistricting and, budget conversations and lots of other big things. But most people don't watch or really observe the committee meetings. Not because they're not important, it's just they're not as frequent as the regular meetings, and their agendas are very specific and detailed. So I want to talk about the policy committee in particular, just because I think it's something we don't talk enough about. So thank you for joining me today. Before we dive into too much, I want to just give you a chance to talk about what is the policy committee's charter and what is it that you work on in that committee.
Yeah, so we have 6 subcommittees in the school committee, 3, and we each have 3. I'm the chair of the policy subcommittee. So a school committee has 3 main jobs. We hire and evaluate the superintendent. You can't see him counting them off. We approve the budget, and we establish policy. And so those are our main jobs. And so the Massachusetts Association of School Committees hosts our policy manual on their website. So that's available to anyone to see. It's linked on our website. And they will provide like recommended policies, new things, or they'll update things, especially based on laws and things that change. So they send a newsletter out with new and updated policies that we can either choose to add or update. A lot of times we'll run things through legal, depending on what our current policies have, if there's something that maybe butts up against that, or we can choose not to update the manual. And so if we have, like, for instance, a more extensive policy on a certain subject that we got from our legal department, like our non-discrimination and harassment policy, if MSC comes up with a different policy, say for harassment, it might not mesh with what we have currently. So that would be something that we would opt not to do because it either is redundant or conflicts with our current policy.
Great, thank you. Now I know because I watch you on school committee meetings and also know you personally, you are fastidious about taking notes and publishing information. And like I said, because the committee meetings are these subcommittee meetings are not things that most of us watch or join in person, although they are public and people can. We mostly get our information sort of from those published meetings. How often does the policy committee meet? And what are the ways that what's discussed and shared and decided upon are made available to the community?
Yeah, so we meet technically as needed, but I like to have a standing monthly meeting just so that, especially the 3 members and the administration and whoever else needs to come, a lot of times it's hard to schedule that many people. So I'll do like the first whatever day of the month, at 9 a.m. And so that way people know when to expect it. It could be more or less often depending on what's happening. The last few years when budgeting and redistricting can come up, those things have been paused, all the subcommittees, either, as a subcommittee or the chair has tabled the reading of the minutes of those subcommittees just because it was like 11:30 one night we got out of there and nobody wanted to hear me talk about policies at that point. So the minutes and the votes sort of get punted at that point to a following meeting.
Thank you. And this is not unique to school committee. This is how all open meetings happen. There is a meeting, notes are taken, but notes are not published generally because they need to go through review and approval by the committee, and that is done at the at a future general committee meeting. And I think if I understand you, what you're saying is the main meetings have been pretty robust with a lot of things. So some of the committee stuff hasn't moved maybe as fast as it might have been in the past. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, normally, so we met on Friday the 20th, and those minutes I expect to read on Wednesday at our next full committee meeting.
Next meeting. Good. So that's a fast one. So that's good. Glad to hear that. And I appreciate you just stepping through the process, because I think most of us who don't go to those committee meetings don't always know how it works and what happens in them. So I think that's helpful for people to do that. The agendas for those policies. So if somebody really is very interested in policy and that's a topic they want to know more about, are those meetings published in the same way as other school committee meetings on the calendar and the paper, sort of 48-hour notice kind of approach?
Yep, all of our meetings are according to the open meeting law. So 48 hours. I try again because we try to do the standing meeting. I try to do them as soon as I know what's going to be on the agenda. Usually it's based on the MASC update newsletter, or if something comes up in the main committee that gets sent to the policy subcommittee. But I'll take I'll take a handful, however many I think people are going to have an appetite for, with the suggested changes, compare them to our current policy, track any changes, make the agenda with the categorization. It's a bunch of letters and title, and then link to that working document. And then that gets posted to the city website. Members of that subcommittee can then review it and make notes prior to the meeting so that we have, everybody's time in mind. And then I like to have time to look it over and think about it before we discuss it. We then discuss it, add or subtract things, confirm we actually do what the policy says, which is important, and either adjust the policy or just the practice. Like bus evacuation drills came up, and some people were like, well, are we doing that? And how often do we do it? And we need to make sure that we are doing it as much as we're supposed to. Do we want to do it more or less? However, that works out.
Yeah.
And then I will make the minutes, usually that same day. That gets sent to the full committee for review as soon as possible, because then we're going to discuss them at the next school committee meeting. And those will be linked again to the agenda by the chair.
Perfect. Now, I know one of the policies that has been up for discussion, because probably spurred by redistricting, but perhaps just that it was time, was about bus transportation in general, and looking at that policy. And I know that's something that you've talked about, kind of what has been the discussion there, and do you anticipate any changes to bus transportation policy?
Right. So we discussed that at the end of May. It's policy EEAA, walkers and riders. And it says that all students, grades K through 12, who live 1.5 miles actual walking distance by the most direct route to the property line of the school where they attend, are eligible for a bus. Anybody outside of that 1.5 miles. Or if there's a hazard, like if you have to walk through four corners, or there's, not a sidewalk or something. And also, of course, they have either a 504 medical need or in their IEP. There are always exceptions, of course, to the rule. And so we did discuss that at our policy meeting. We brought it up on, I think it was the 13th of June. And normally when we bring a policy forward, according to our policy on policy, there's 3 steps. So first, it's presented for tabling. And that way the public knows that the conversation is happening, gives everybody an opportunity to weigh in, either at a future meeting public comment, or they can email us. The next meeting after that is the discussion item. And that's when we can chat about, any thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, add or subtract, incorporate community feedback. And then the third meeting is when it's on for an action item, whether we're going to remove something, add something, or accept, changes and reaffirm them. And so normally that's the way that it runs, but we can, in certain situations, expedite the process if we need to. And so because we only had 2 more meetings after that last policy meeting, we wanted to have discussion item this past meeting, and then be able to act coming up on Wednesday so that we have that for the summer while the bus schedules are being made in case there are changes. I don't anticipate any changes. There didn't seem to be any feedback as far as that when we discussed it the last week, but we will see what happens on Wednesday.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Are there any other policies, like big policies that are under discussion right now? Before I know we're, close to the end of the year and, things will kick back up again in the fall.
Right. So we went over some of the finance policies with the finance department recently and all the other transportation policies. Usually MASC suggests that you go through a few every, say, month. And then as you're going through, you can update and remove as necessary. And then by the time you get through, what we have is 150 policies, it's time to start over again. And it's just sort of ongoing practice. And so a few years ago, the chair asked me to begin preparing our policy review. And so I read it through, which was a good way to see everything relatedly. If you're looking for a policy and you search for a word and you bring up that policy, that's one thing, but it's nice to read them all as a one item. So for instance, we had a policy for tobacco, alcohol, and drugs. And then later, MASC changed that to a different categorization and it called it alcohol, tobacco, and drugs. And so as I'm reading this, I said, this looks really familiar. Well, because I just read it. Because it just happened to be added, but the old one wasn't removed. So that was a good, check through. And it just makes it more user friendly and less confusing.
Yeah, that I love that. Much to my husband's frustration, my house redecorating is similar to what you described, which I do one room, and by the time I'm done doing all the rooms, it's time to redo the one that I did first again.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that, and things change, and so I think it's great to hear that even when there isn't something specific that has been raised, that we're still just doing good housekeeping and kind of checking on it on a regular basis. So thank you to you and the other committee members for doing that. Who is currently the other members of the policy committee?
Vice Chair Patricia Chisholm and James Austin.
Great, excellent. Thank you so much. Anything else you think we should know about the important work that's happening on policy committee?
Yeah, since we've started this process, we've removed about 50 outdated or redundant policies, and we've reaffirmed or added almost 110, but there's still 200 about to address. So it's the work is ongoing.
Excellent. Thank you for doing that and for helping step us through it. I think it's an important thing for us to pay attention to.
Thank you.
Excellent. Woburn, thank you for joining us. I hope you found this week helpful. Lots of things going on as always. I do want to let you know that because the July holiday is coming up next week, it's a short week. So we won't be filming next week, but we'll be back the week after. Appreciate as always your attention. I hope you found this useful, and please continue to take good care of each other.